Hello, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming to our info session. I am just going to let people in
Oh,
over the next minute or so, so just hang tight
oh, okay. Hang on. So-
while we're getting situated. Please put yourself on mute for the time being. And you can see Juliet, our CFO, just put something in the chat to prompt you perhaps to share a little bit about who you are in where you're coming from, what brings you here. All of that would be delightful for us to understand who's in the room tonight. Hi, Matthew. Happy you're here. Kosu, good to see you. Ruby. Yay, familiar faces and new names. I see Barb, one of our mentors, and Tina. I think that's just a picture. You're not live. Mandy, hello. I see one of our board members. Wonderful. All right, are you guys talking to us in the chat yet?
Let's get some chats going.
Talk to us. Who are you? Where are you coming from? Why are you here? And just maybe 30 more seconds. I am coming to you from Jamaica currently. Ooh, ooh, it's so gorgeous here. Ruby, you're in California, usually in London. Or you're in usually California right now, you're in London. Okay. Wonderful. Mandy is in Texas. It's just worldwide. Go Sue with your peeps. All right, let's get the party started. Let's see, 7:33. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Um, I am Angela Tucker. I'm the founder of the Adoptee Mentoring Society and the CEO. I'm here tonight with my two sidekicks, Juliet and Amanda. Juliet is waving. She comes to us from Texas. Our CFO. You want to say hi?
Hi everyone. Hi. Yes, I'm Juliet. I'm CFO of AMS, also a transracial adoptee. I'm based here in Houston, Texas.
Amanda is rounds out our staff. We're a staff of three. Amanda, do you want to come off mute and say hello?
Hi. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to keep up with the chat and Zoom things, and I'm so excited how many more people are here today for today's info session. I'm Amanda. I lead our programs and operations. I'm also a transracial adoptee and excited to be here.
So we can be real casual tonight. Really want to answer your questions. I have a slide deck, but really it's like raise your hand or your digital hand or just come off mute if you're like, wait, what do you mean? Tell me more. I'm going to go through a little bit of how we came to be, and then I know there's often a lot of questions about becoming a mentor. What does it take? Why is it so rigorous? Different questions. So we'll talk about that. And any questions you have, put them in the chat or ask away. So, the Adoptee Mentoring Society, we are virtual mentorship for adoptees by adoptees. Real tight little tagline that I love. Virtual meaning we are on Zoom. That's how we conduct all of our one-on-one mentoring and our the Adoptee Lounge, which is group sessions. And our mission is to validate, affirm, and center adopted people through compassionate, research-informed virtual mentorship from those with lived experience. We really understand that something magical happens when adoptees are in open, genuine communication and contact with other adopted people. It is a very kind of sacred time, different than therapy, which we can share about the ways and how it differs. Very communal, and I can go into a little bit of the story of why I founded this. So, it was back in 2013 or so when a documentary about my search for my birth parents and my reunion with them went kind of on a national film festival tour. This documentary was filmed by my husband, so my husband and I were traveling the country. My adoptive parents would also love to just come wherever we were, sit in the back like proud, doting parents, and listen to the Q&A predominantly is what they were curious about. Curious what questions people had, and it was at that time that I noticed so many adoptees would come up to me after the screenings and say things like, I have never talked to another adoptee before, or I've never heard another adoptee say, it really sucks being adopted, especially saying that out loud with my adoptive parents there. Many adoptees would just flock to the stage and be like, wow. Or I would try to, from my experience, say, like, my adoptive parents are good humans. I'm in good contact with them. I like them. They're here right now. They're supporting me. And I wish I never had to be adopted. I'm really sad about the systemic injustices that led to my birth mother not being able to keep me and all these things, right? I was saying all this stuff, and it was just earth shattering to so many adoptees that I could say this aloud and not be like rebuked or struck by lightning at that moment. And at the same time, parents of the adoptees would flock to my parents. They would find them in the audience and say, like, we're really sorry. They would like apologize on my behalf, even though I didn't ask for it. We're really sorry that Angela speaks so critically of adoption. Just such a great thing you did. Wow. You know, and they might say, my parents would tell me later, they would say, yeah, we adopted a kid and they're here right now, and they never talk about adoption. They don't think about it. They're like so happy. And my parents and I comparing notes would be like, oh my gosh, like the person that came up to me was the child of that adoptive parent who came up to you. So again and again, I'm realizing how many discrepancies in these stories. And really, it was like adoptees just feeling that split loyalty of, I don't want to hurt my parents' feelings. And so there was just a stuck point of that makes it such that I don't feel like I can really explore this trauma of being adopted. So I began giving out my information to everyone that came up to me, like, let's Zoom, let's talk about it. And before I knew it, I had amassed like almost 300 people that I was mentoring virtually. I didn't know that, I didn't call it that. It was just chatting and validating and listening. And I see Ilber here. He was in that first group before we formally became a 501c3 nonprofit, where I think I convened a group of folks around the show Little Fires Everywhere that was playing at the time on TV, and it had a strong adoption line. And so all these adoptees got together, including Obersal, to talk about that and how it made us, how it depicted us and what we felt about that. And so I realized like there was something here, that this was filling a huge need, and decided to incorporate, partially because I really wanted, I didn't, I still don't, Amanda and Juliet would agree with this, that we wish that adoptees didn't have to pay for our own healing. And I was charging folks to meet, and because it became a big part of my work. And so part of my motivation was hearing from folks who were saying, like, I think we could get some grants to offset costs so adoptees aren't having to pay. And so that was one of the reasons that I thought maybe a 501c3 would be the right approach for growing and scaling. That is a brief background of how and why we started. Um, One of our early mentees talked about why she found adoptee mentoring so helpful. So I'm going to play this short clip from Becca so you can hear from her words.
Hi, my name is Becca Flatt, and I am a mental health provider and an adult interracial adoptee. I am also someone who has struggled with feeling like I belong, finding community that feels safe for me, and that has been able to mirror back to me all of my intersecting identities. What I've found with adoptee lounges are that I don't need to look further for community connection, care, and the mirrors that I've been looking for my entire life. And one of the things that I'm often talking about as a mental health professional is reducing this feeling of isolation that can come with feeling that there's something inherently wrong with you. And that's something that I've experienced, that sense of there's something wrong with me. And I have found that soul balm in the mentoring experiences that I've had through the lounges and one-on-ones. I feel less like I don't belong and more like I'm a normal person who has had a lot of abnormal experiences, um, including the fundamental foundational trauma of losing my biological connections. I think there's something supremely gratifying about being able to sit with another adoptee who very much understands what it feels like to not belong and to have mirror back that that's normal and it's okay. I think the Adoptee Mentoring Society has so much potential to develop this really beautiful, deep community that can talk about really hard things when adoptees often aren't allowed to talk about really hard things. And the best part is that we're going to be able to do it together. So I am beyond excited to be a part of this kickoff because there's something so beautiful about the magic that happens in community with other adoptees as an adoptee. So to say that I support mentoring is a understatement, and I just am really looking forward to seeing what the Adoptee Mentoring Society does, because I think there's so much power here and I just am so excited to be along for the ride.
Thank you, Becca, for that.
Hi.
I'm not going to share that video that just played a little bit. The previous slide was a video of an adoptive mother who was talking about the importance of the mentoring for her teenage son. We have another info session coming up next month that'll really be geared for adoptive parents of youth to talk about like how to trust that how we're going to work with your child. And so I won't play that today, but you actually can have access to this whole slide deck. We can put the link in the chat so you can watch it later too if you'd like. But let me share about our 3 solutions to this problem of adoptee isolation, adoptees not understanding the full range of verbiage and vernacular to be able to explain and understand our own circumstances. We do one-on-one mentorship, which is more designed to go deeper into one's personal experience. And our mentors are trained to help you kind of sharpen your own beliefs about your adoption. So there is no indoctrination. We're not, as I talk about who qualifies as a mentor, this will make sense about how the mentoring one-on-one is really there to help the adoptee clarify their own feelings and position about their own story. As opposed to the adoptee lounge, which is a group setting. So there might be 5 or 6 other adoptees grouped around age. And the focus for the adoptee lounges is less a deep individual excavation and more the community aspect. So certainly we get into really wonderfully deep and fun conversations. It's important for me to share that there is such joy in the spaces that I always seem to find in my lounges. And I think Barb, who's here, and Jenny might join us in a bit. And some of you have been in the lounges. Feel free to put in the chat your experience. But I find that it's a fascinating mix of depth and joy, lightheartedness and grief. And that it seems to look and feel to me just healing. And the final service is our fireside chat, which are quarterly public speaking online that we love our mentees having the opportunity to speak publicly and share their story. This for me is an extension of mentorship, that there's a lot of adoptees who come saying, I want to share my story, I want to speak out, I want to advocate. And they might learn through the course of the adoptee lounges or one-on-ones that perhaps they aren't sharing their story in a real strategic way, that it maybe just comes out as like word vomit and oversharing, and that's really inappropriate. And part of what I seek in mentorship is to help adoptees understand what parts of your story do you truly want to share for your own heart's sake, not just the curiosity of others, which can be so huge. And so it can be a really empowering thing for other adoptees to be showcased in our fireside chat and feeling strong in themselves and knowing they aren't being asked to overshare. We are not exploiting adoptee stories, but if they want to educate, then this is the opportunity for them. These fireside chats are the only thing that's available to everybody. The one-on-ones in the adoptee lounge, adoptees only, period, full stop, end of story. Fireside chats, therapists like to come, professionals out in the field, parents, a big mix of folks like to hear our stories. And so that is a chance for others to see what it looks like when adoptee identity can kind of congeal and be used in such a powerful way. Okay, I'm chatting. I'm going to make sure that I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. No. Is there anybody in the room that wants to share? I see your hand, Matthew. You can come off mute. And then I was also going to ask if there's anybody in the room who's been in a lounge and wants to offer their interpretation of the lounge or the one-on-ones in a way that differs from what I said. But Matthew, go ahead.
Thank you for all of this. It's great to be hearing the whole journey. I had a quick question just around the price for youth in the adoptee lounge. That it just seems disproportionate to adults, and I was just wondering why that is. And also the adoptee lounges are amazing. I don't know, I've been to one so far. I have another one this week and I'm super excited about it. It was everything.
Yeah, the price discrepancy, the youth for the adoptee lounge, $35. For adults, it's $10. Facilitating a group virtually with tweens and teens ain't no easy thing. So it has to do with the skills required. I guess if I could just boil it down and simplify it, I think our team understands the pricing structure. It still needs some massaging, and as we work really hard to get more grants and things, I really hope that our pricing can kind of be uniform. At this point, given that we just have 3 mentors, it reflects kind of that energy needed. As part of our being a mentor, our mentors are paid a stipend of $3,000 a year, and that does not matter how many sessions they offer. And so part of our pricing structure does reflect our need to and our commitment to paying our mentors. And for the youth, um, there is certainly a perhaps longer recovery time sometimes for mentors. And one of the things we do for our mentors is a monthly reflective consultation with a licensed clinical therapist who, and all the mentors are required to attend these monthly. And I think there's often quite a bit of fodder that needs to happen around mentoring youth. One reason that it's kind of a unique thing isn't just because of tweens and teens being adolescents and all that that entails, but the difference between our adult adoptee mentors and the tweens is really big in the adoptee identity sense. That many of our adults who are mentoring maybe grew up in closed adoptions, they grew up in a family where their adoptive parents may never have signed them up willingly for something like this. And now they're mentoring teenagers and tweens whose parents are like, yay, we want you to have this private space with an adoptee, and a real understanding of the importance of this. And that can bring up a lot. And by virtue of being adoptees, mentoring adoptees, we understand and have a huge, we allot financial resources to supporting the inevitable stuff that'll come up for our mentors, even with the great training that they get. Good question, Matt. Other thoughts? Bree, are you, yeah, come off mute.
Yeah, sorry, I'm like tentative because I guess I just want to share a reflection. I'm appreciating the way that you're laying out sort of the flow of sort of connection and involvement in processing through these three different tiers, the one-on-one focus, and then the group container, and then this sort of more public facing front. I've only joined one adoptee lounge, and it was amazing, but also it caught me by surprise because I think I'm only like a year and a half into my journey of like actually claiming and understanding my story. I was adopted once as a child and then again as a teenager. Um, and there's a lot of intersecting identities for me that there's a lot there. And I didn't realize until I got on the adoptee lounge that I was like a little volcano of emotions and confused words, and like I didn't really have my shit together in some sense. And I felt some shame about that afterwards, which is just like human stuff and me stuff. So when you first said, sometimes it can all come out as word vomit and that's inappropriate, part of me was like, oh God, yes, I did that. Um,
Yes, Anne Bree, it's not inappropriate to do in a lounge. I think that's the perfect space for us to learn and
Right.
realize we're doing it. It's inappropriate for us to put speakers on the fireside chat to do
Yeah,
it to a public. But yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
really so common.
I understood your more your broader intention behind that language afterwards, but it made me appreciate too that in introducing myself to the Adoptee Mentoring Society, which I was so excited about. I'd heard some interviews with you before finding it and was so stoked. Um, that felt like the most accessible entry point for me to sort of get familiarized, but I'm also really grateful to just know in some sense like that the one-on-one mentorship is also there.
Yes.
um and I don't know, I'm not quite sure how to wrap up what I'm saying here, but there's some thoughts.
I love that, Bree. I'm so grateful you shared that. It's good feedback. I think for Amanda specifically, who is always working really hard to fully articulate what to expect when coming into your first Adoptee Lounge. And when you go through our registration or sign up for a lounge, there's a box that always says, "Is this your first?" And part of that, we have a short video from one mentee who articulates, I think Obersal, yeah, he's here. He did a short video for us to try to help people with an entree of what this is going to be. But I think your feedback gives us even more to consider because I think there's so much space. I know so many adoptees who have lurked and been like, I want to join, but I'm not ready. I want to join, but I don't know the right words. And that's like the perfect person to join. And I think it was Ricky who maybe wrote in the chat, like, I'm still doing it. I think so many of us would say that. And this is where the lounges, I think, are invaluable. That one of the messages I hear myself saying a lot is how adoptee identity formation is not chronological. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm 45 years old, I should know all the things. It's developmental. So we get to a place to where we feel safe enough to be able to process, and it can be, we hear all the time in the lounge, I'm so embarrassed that I'm X age and just starting. And my heart breaks because I'm like, right where it should be. I mean, this is part of the system. This is part of the design. Yeah. Okay, let me move forward here. I'm not going to play Harper's video at the moment. Actually, let me look at Amanda. Should I play Harper's? He talks about one-on-one. No, okay. So let's talk about our staff. I introduced you to Amanda and Juliet. The three of us are the staff, the paid staff here. And then we have a slew of volunteers, which include a team of ambassadors. Juliet, do you want to speak about the ambassador team?
It would be my honor. We have a mighty crew of ambassadors who are all part of the AMS community. Feel free to go check out who they are on our website. They are really a major part in helping us spread awareness about AMS and what we do and why we do what we do. And if you're part of the AMS community and you're ever interested in learning more about that program, I'd love to share more. We're always looking for other adoptees who are really passionate about mentorship and eager to expand this community because it's really important, as Angela said. We're constantly hearing from those who think, maybe they don't have the right words yet or are maybe intimidated a little bit about this. So the ambassadors really help us kind of make those connections where they may otherwise not happen. So yeah, and Lisa, who is here, is also an ambassador. So hi, Lisa.
Many people come thinking the only way they can be involved in AMS is to become a mentor. Mentor skills are pretty unique. It takes a lot to facilitate. Not everyone wants to even be a mentor. Maybe you just want to be a mentee and that's great. But there is this place, the ambassadors are really going around the country talking to teachers or adoption agencies, being like, this exists. You should know about it, kind of thing. And that's really valuable for us. I will talk about our volunteers in a bit too. We have a board. I think one of our board members is here tonight. Matthew, can someone be both an ambassador and a mentor? No. Amanda, do you feel like you could speak to that in terms of why we wouldn't want someone to be a dual role like that?
I'm curious what you would add to this. And I would say the mentor role in itself is pretty demanding. It is a paid role, a stipend role. And there are sorry, words. It's a pretty heavy, I don't know if I want to say heavy, but rigorous training process starting in March, with onboarding and our in-person training, which we fly folks out to Seattle for a few days. And then there's continuous training through the spring, the next few months, with required coaching sessions, with meetings with the team, getting oriented to our organization and each other. And then it's mentors do get to decide their availability for one-on-ones and lounges. And it can kind of be a hit the ground running kind of experience with it's a lot of information intake. It's a lot of feedback that you're receiving. It's a lot of time that we're asking for, especially in the earlier training window. And it is a commitment, it's significant that mentors show up when they say they will. Sorry, I'm also getting distracted by the chat. But it's a lot. I see Jenny just joined too. So Jenny and Barb and Angela are our current mentor team. They can probably speak to the just what their capacity has looked like in terms of actual hours. And I know that they also do their own personal development, personal professional development outside of all of the required meetings that we have as well. There is not only the actual sessions, but after every session, one-on-ones and lounges, mentors are required to submit a post-session report. I know that folks put in time and thought to that as well. There are case notes or like session notes for every mentee. So it is, labor, it is a job. It does require time and energy, which I know is also in addition to other work that folks are doing. So we really want folks to understand that it is a commitment, and time is a big part of that. And I think emotionally too, just being aware of what can be coming up for you as a mentor, and it can become challenging at times. And yeah, we want folks to feel prepared in terms of understanding how much time we're asking for, and also what a responsibility of the work is, and how that can also potentially impact you in other ways.
Yeah, it's a stipend, so people are doing other work, and I think we do. I've done so much research in the adoptee world, and so common we kind of overstretch ourselves. So I think there's an aspect of nowhere in an organization that I'm trying to build am I going to perpetuate some of the things that I know adoptees do and that society loves. A lot of us are overachievers, people pleasers, and stuff, and it's like, we're not going to do that here. Um, Certainly, I think Jenny and Barb both advocate around Adoptee Mentoring Society, talk about what they're doing, and so they are ambassadors in their own right, of course. But Juliet, who leads the ambassador team, meets with them on a regular basis, and Lisa's here, she's one of them, but they each have their own kind of strategy about how they want to impact the world sharing about AMS. So, yeah. Good question. Okay, so back to the slide. Our board, every nonprofit required to have a board, and that board is basically my boss. Really they are focused on making sure we are financially responsible. Um, they do a wonderful job helping to make sure that I am not overextending. There's so much more that we could be doing, want to be doing. I should note both Juliet, Amanda, and myself are all technically part-time, but we may work more than that because we choose to, not because it's expected. But the board recognizes that they're wanting to make sure we're healthy, responsible, and sustainable, that we will be here for the long term, which is my goal. And we're always looking for new board members, especially those who have had previous board experience, fundraising experience, maybe grant writing, that kind of thing. So our mentors, me, Jenny, Barb. Jenny and Barb are here tonight. I didn't ask them to prepare anything, but I do think that they would be amenable to answering a question if any of you had any about the process. I want to play a video first that describes the training. Um, Amanda alluded to this, but we have a training weekend in Seattle where we come together, and we've contracted with some incredible adoptee scholars who walk through different trainings, and they will talk about that on this video. So let me just play this so you can start to get a sense of how rigorous the training part is, which comes, of course, after the vetting, the filling out your application, doing some interviews. I can talk about what that looks like as well. But first, let's just look at this, what the training curriculum consists of.
The role of mentors at AMS is distinctly different than the type of work that I do as a therapist. However, it is really important in my mind that we provide this very unique type of training that includes trauma-informed mentorship for our mentors, making sure they're really aware of grief and loss issues related to adoption, and really honing and practicing their skills when it comes to being an active, empathetic listener.
My mother-in-law was adopted from child welfare. So when I met my husband, that was a part of our conversation. I struggled quite a bit with trying to understand why she dealt with so many different illnesses throughout her life. And as I started learning about the impact of trauma on a person's body and their health, it really made me start putting some connections together of understanding that maybe there was some type of impact of the multiple layers of loss that she experienced as an adoptee. That's the reason why I now study and do engage in research on adoption.
One of the great joys of my professional work is that I get to do research exploring how adoption has impacted adoptees. What happens to adoptees past childhood? Since so much of the research on adoption focuses on adopted children and adoptive parents. The adoptee consciousness model is a framework that was developed by myself along with a number of my colleagues, all adoptees. And it was a way for us to expand the language that is really common among the adoptee community, this concept called coming out of the fog, which is when you realize that maybe what you knew or understood about adoption is different. You get information in some way that makes you really understand that adoption is more than perhaps your individual story. We really saw our experience as adoptees as being a series of different touch points that we experience, and all these different experiences that shape who we are inform our larger consciousness. Some identity models are very linear. They kind of say, like, you start out here and you progress through these different stages. We see ourselves as more of a spiral where you can find yourself in different places in the spiral, in the model, at different points in your life, or even simultaneously at the same time.
AMS has taken some steps to really dig in and understand what are the specific skills that a mentor needs to be able to engage in this powerful, meaningful, and also kind of complex relationship with a mentee. The person who is mentoring another has done some work internally to be able to really ground themselves and have some good awareness of how their presence can be a supportive presence in relationship to the mentee.
Something will bring adoptees to AMS. Adoptees might be in rupture. they've experienced some kind of adoption related microaggression or discrimination, or maybe they connected with somebody from their first family or birth family, and it really changes everything that they thought they knew about their adoption experience. And so they're looking for validation, they're looking for a community.
Whatever their why is, or whatever that's bringing them to come and explore, having the tools, having a lot of training, having a lot of support means that our mentors will be able to respond appropriately and be able to let the mentee take the lead, so to speak, in this journey, and then just ride along with them and kind of as their co-pilot. All of the things that we learn about in that training applies to ourselves individually, personally as well. We have to make sure our own story and our own experiences don't somehow get entangled with the mentee. If things arise for ourselves around our own adoption story, we want to make sure that we provide our mentors with that kind of being in tune with themselves as part of the work to be able to really attune to their mentee.
It's really important to learn how to be engaged as a mentor without pushing your own agenda and your own thoughts about where you think somebody should be. So by using the consciousness model in the AMS training, it's helping all the mentors really be able to have tools to engage with and support the adoptees no matter where they are in their own experience.
I am excited to continue to dig deeper into understanding what are the skills that create a good mentoring experience, and actually doing analysis of the conversations that our mentors are having. What are they doing that is really engaging? What's happening in those moments?
Being data informed is really important. A lot of mentoring programs just rely on anecdotes. AMS really uses evaluation and feedback in a lovely way to help make sure that they actually are responding to what adoptees are needing.
I'm so grateful to be able to continue to support the growth of AMS and be able to expand this opportunity to connect to all adoptees. It's just the beginning.
So it's nice to have a husband who's a filmmaker. He can make some beautiful things for us, but it's not just a beautifully shot and stuff. It's you can see the quality of instructors that we have. Um, Ron talked about the adoptee consciousness model. This is probably one of the bulkiest parts of the vetting process. So when we're going to open up our mentor applications real soon. And right now you can go on our website and click and find all the questions that we ask on the application so you can prep for it. But a big part of it is we need our mentors to be in the agency touchstone, which means that they're able to. Bree, you couldn't see. Oh, you couldn't see. Okay. Bree, yes, there was video with all the talking. I think Amanda put the link in the chat where you can actually click and see this whole slide deck, and you could watch all the other videos that I didn't play, including that one. So for the application process, we need our mentors to be able to articulate how and why they see themselves in the agency touchstone with evidence. The bulk of that is you're able to show us through giving examples of how you can hold both and. You can hold adoptions frustratingly awful, and some may view adoption as beautiful. That might not be your truth, but you can understand that. You can, I am able to articulate in depth why I hate being adopted and I love my adoptive parents. That's a true sentence for me. It's not true for everybody, but that's an example of something we would hope to hear from people who are applying to be mentors. Um, I'm also able to talk about how someone in the status quo touchstone may not be able to hear a huge litany of resources that I think are really powerful. And so being able to be cognizant of that, a lot of therapists say meet people where they're at, kind of that aspect. We are going to be kind of pushing or helping people to see how their words may not match their actions, but we're not indoctrinating and we don't prescribe you need to be here at this point. You need to have a reunion. You should go meet your like that is absolutely inappropriate. And in our vetting process, we need prospective mentors to be able to articulate why that might be hurtful, harmful. It's a tough. It's not a space that we're building slowly for a reason. So let me stop and allow folks to ask questions of myself, Barb, or Jenny about being a mentor.
Sorry, I'm doing the tired middle of the night thing of not being able to find a Zoom hand, but I'm waving my
Hi,
hand around
Ruby.
like an old person.
Yes.
Hi. I wanted to ask, like, I totally get the like wanting people to apply to be, like you're saying, in the agency touchstone, and the touchstones are variable and spiraling, and we move around them all of the time. And so that one, I would guess that that would show in my answers in the application, and so would that deem me not appropriate? And also, how in the training do you? I'm guessing you have, and you're not going to tell me the answers right now, but I'm guessing there's like methods of identifying when we're shifting, identifying the triggers that make us move to the different touchstones, and ways to kind of, I don't know, I'm using the metaphors of the stone of like weighing ourselves down to stay in the agency space while we're in the mentoring.
Oh man, so great, Ruby. I think yes, we of course understand that all of us adoptees, it's not a linear, you're not getting to agency and expansiveness and staying there. And like I spoke about earlier, it's so natural for us to have a lot of feelings when we are mentoring others. I think what we're looking for is someone to be able to articulate just that. The self-awareness aspect is crucial so that then we can be a team. We have hired this clinician Spring to support our mentors. We need our mentors to be able to have an awareness to say, I'm really feeling XYZ, or to say to Amanda, I don't think I can mentor X type of people. For me, that's sexual abuse is a really tricky thing. So I might, with my own self-awareness, be able to say, if possible, if someone is disclosing this really early, I may not be a good fit for them. That requires that expansive thinking that you're talking about, Ruby, just that awareness. And then the ability to share it with us is absolutely part of what we're sussing out in the application too. They're not telling us what we want to hear, if that makes sense. Jenny or Barb, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, I was going to mention Spring, of course, as being like an amazing resource when these things kind of come up. But I think the other thing, like one thing I know that we did in training weekend was like actually like sitting down and identifying like what things we felt like super like ready to go sharing with others, even just like about ourselves, things that were maybe like a little bit deeper down and things that were just like an absolute like, no, I'm going to be a hot mess if I start talking about this. I actually had one pop up for me during the training that I did not know was a thing. And I was like, oh, they're like gonna add that to the red list. So I think that like, yeah, there's definitely space for, you don't have to like 100% live in agency all the time with every single thing. Like that would be really unrealistic. But one thing I'll say is like I've been doing this now. This is like I'm in my second cohort in a row, and like I can identify ways that like you know, when I first applied, I'm like, oh yeah, no, here's the ways that like I think I'm like in this touchstone. And now I would talk about it differently. And like, you know, I can identify the progress there too. And so I also think that there's like a ton of room for like personal and like professional growth within like mentoring itself.
Yeah, yeah. Jenny is speaking to a part in our training where we talk about the importance of self-disclosure. You know, in therapy, that's a term we use it a little bit differently in the sense that mentorship is a two-way relationship. We want our mentees to know us, and we are not going to take over a session by talking too much. And so we can pull out these pieces of our own experience that already like in training we're like, yes, these are things I want to share with my mentee when it's appropriate. And so you have that kind of toolbox. um, and yeah, that list ebbs and flows. Matthew.
I don't know if this is part of talking too much, but loads of questions coming up. Just thinking about like Jenny, maybe you could speak to, you just talked about your second cohort. In terms of like one-on-ones, do mentors meet with the same folks over like more than once? Is everything a one-off? And I also was just wondering about kind of the supervision model. You touched on it a bit, Angela, in the presentation, and kind of safety protocols around that to support the mentors as well.
Yeah, I can speak to the first part. Maybe Amanda, you can talk about the second half. Um, it was from the beginning really important to me to not replicate any aspects of harm in adoption. One place I feel that is that most of us were adopted without giving any input or consent. And for that reason, I, at this point, have not implemented something where it's like you have to have this many sessions, you have to do it at this pace, at this rate. I want adoptees to feel a sense of agency and control and deciding how often they want to meet, when they want to meet. Um, so no, we hope that folks want to come back and keep working because that's how we're gonna reach some of our goals of not feeling so isolated and alone and expanding their vocabulary and all these things, but it's completely up to them.
And then in terms of supervision, I would include this. A piece of that, I think, comes from coaching sessions, where during the training phase and then continuing throughout the year, or that timeline might change a little bit, but there will be continual coaching sessions that I know some folks here volunteered in, where we invite real life mentees, folks who have participated in our programs, and also folks who have not participated in our programs, who are new, who want to get a feel for what a possible one-on-one or lounge can be like in a supervised training environment. So they are abbreviated sessions, but they are very real. They're practice, but I don't want to like give or imply that it's not real in any way. They're very real sessions with our training team there, all of our mentors there, and the training team and the mentees are offering feedback to the mentors live. And then that continues scheduling wise. There are more sessions earlier in the training, and then that continues throughout the year. We also record all of our sessions, one-on-ones and lounges. I don't know, I feel a little bit something self-conscious around saying this. I watch almost all of them. And our training team, which includes Angela and one of our consultants, also meet once a month to review several of them. We offer feedback to the mentors that comes out of those review meetings quarterly right now, or intermittently if something is urgent. But we have quarterly feedback meetings with the mentors to offer feedback both ways. there shouldn't be anything that's a surprise at that point for the mentors. It should be feedback that we have been sharing with them through those 3 months up to that point. Any other feedback that comes through, we're really big on feedback in all directions from everyone within the organization, including our mentees. We have received feedback from mentees that has needed to be shared with mentors, which we're pretty direct in addressing, or want to address those things as soon as possible. Angel also mentioned the monthly reflective consultation meetings that we have with a licensed therapist who is also part of our consulting team. That's more to talk about things that are coming up for the mentors. Since the last month in sessions, it can typically be more an emotional holding space, but it's also an additional check-in point that's more regular as well. I think those are most of the things, if not all of the things.
Yeah, it can be really a surprising thing, I think, for mentors to realize how different it feels to be a mentor than a mentee. So this is what we talk about a lot in our vetting is we know you love being a mentee feels kind of like young, but I use that word to say you've been in our spaces and you've really enjoyed it, and that's fantastic. And I think it still may come as a surprise, and Barb and Jenny could speak to this about how it's different, and that is a space for reflection too, holding space for others, facilitating. It is a different experience than that mentee part. Barb, I want you to be able to share, and then Bree, I see your hand for a question as well.
I just want to chime in and just kind of dovetail on what Amanda shared, that what's really supportive is not mentoring in a vacuum. And from the recorded sessions and feedback that we give to one another, reflections that we're able to say, and then questions that we have of mentoring, we're able to just pop those into a team chat that we have on Slack and get, almost immediate feedback. I mean, it's not really immediate, but as people are able, and we can, comment on each other and interact. And I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this without that kind of support. This is my first cohort mentoring, and when I went into it in March, it definitely was a case of, well, you really don't know what you don't know. And so, so much learning has happened, and that's been really great. But there is a piece that we just can't do this. We are really a team, and we're not doing this in isolation. And I really appreciate that, because I would not be able to do this without the support and without the input and the feedback.
Yeah. There's the awareness piece that we talked about earlier is really important. I think for Barb, it was people choose to be in your lounges, and Barb, as a white person, had people of color in her lounges, and I think there was some growth around realizing that a lot of people of color might perceive Barb like as their adopters, instead of who Barb is, a wonderful, kind soul that is an adoptee and wants to be in the space, and understanding that projection is going to happen. There were some tools and techniques that we needed to develop even more so that it would be a safe place for all adoptees, with a white person as a mentor. Just one example of many, of course. Bree and then Obersal, I'm also noting the time. If people need to jump off, it's okay. We are recording this, and we will put it on our YouTube channel and send it out in case you have to leave. Yeah, bye, Ricky. Bree, go ahead.
I am wondering, as I said in the chat, it was really such a detailed download that Amanda gave of the whole training process and what it entails. I'm curious about how it sounded like it was very maybe just the way that it was being shared one after the other. It sounded like a very dense and sort of condensed process. I was curious how long the training process takes, how much of it is able to be adapted to training mentors needing a slower pace for integration. That's one piece. And then the other question I had was, how do potential mentors, like people who apply and then meet with you and are vetted, get screened out? And is there feedback for growth for people who are really passionate about pursuing it, having to accept that they're not yet prepared for it? And is there encouragement and allowance for reapplication at a later time?
Great questions. Obersal, you want to speak to that? I think I can put you off mute.
There we go.
Oh,
Got it. Looking for the button. So, hi, my name is Oversell. I'm a transracial international adoptee. I'm also like the unofficial lounge spokesperson. Um, if you've ever seen one, I'm on the video. Bree, incidentally, not what I was going to say, but to your question, um, from personal experience, yes. Um, I was going to kind of speak to this independently, but I have applied for mentorship twice. I have been, I said, denied twice, but I was given feedback and encouragement, and sort of through the vetting process, like you get the interview, and I was given information in terms of like my application questions that arose by the I believe it was Angela or after it was Angela and Amanda, in terms of like what I meant by this answer or context to things I didn't actually understand, because again you answer and you give the information that you have, and if it doesn't make sense to them, they give you a chance to, you know, explain or justify yourself. Not that that is that's enough, but it does sort of give some resolve to like the unknowns of, it's not just, well, you didn't get in, good luck next year. It's, here are some, here's feedback. Here's something to possibly steer you in a, let's say a right, but a more, I guess, a general direction that leads to, you know, better outcome, and the opportunity and the encouragement to continue to apply if and when you're ready to do so is has been presented. And I think that's part of the thing in terms of like, say, mentoring on a one-on-one aspect versus mentoring in a group or lounge aspect versus and or in the ambassador role. Like all of these things can be applied to or be considered if, say, you had one idea of where you thought you wanted to fit in, and they might subscribe a possibility of another that, you know, you may be open to. Maybe not in that session, but it gives you the information to possibly think about those alternatives if that's something you want to pursue. If that makes sense.
Yeah, cool. They're very, very helpful. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Obersal. Yeah, I mean, this was one of the things I knew building this was like, you're gonna reject adoptees who've already experienced effing rejection, like what? So that's not fun. But we have a North Star, and that is we will not harm adoptees more. And we should be able to articulate how we could foresee harm if, you know, that is the hard work that we are doing. So yeah, I think Bree, the question you asked about the training is 2.5 days. Amanda and I are working on, maybe that needs to be longer. You know, this is, we're still really young as an organization, so we're really malleable and flexible because we can be. I'm so grateful we can be nimble. But 2.5 days in person in Seattle, and then, like Amanda said, those quarterly coaching sessions are virtual, and then we do make adjustments and adapt as mentors see, as we all recognize different needs. You know, I've done some co-leadership with Barb for some of her lounges over the course of her tenure, which may not do for all, we might do for all. It's just all about adoptees being safe in sessions. And um, so yeah, I don't know, Amanda, would you add, is there any other ways that we go at the pace of a mentor that you could share?
So we will be adding a day. It'll be 3-day in-person training, and I would say March will be the training month. So there'll be a 2-hour virtual onboarding meeting, then the 3-day in-person training, and something else happening in March. And then also after the in-person training, where we will go over specifically lounge group facilitation skills. There will also be a virtual group facilitation training to be able to do that virtually, because it is a different thing to be in a physical room with folks compared to trying to facilitate all of the group things that you can't pick up on Zoom. So those are the like required training times throughout March, but I would call March through May the like meatiest training window. And in those in that 3 months, you will not be meeting for paid sessions with mentees. So you would be meeting mentees through the coaching sessions. How many of those we'll be doing exactly in those 3 months, I'm still working out. But you would have, I would say, at least 5 coaching sessions. Right now they're 2 hours long. Before the point of getting any booked sessions for lounges or one-on-ones at that point. So that's 3 months of being in a heavy training season and also having some time to sit with that and continue practicing it before you would actually be meeting with folks in unsupervised environment.
Yeah, it's a humbling time, the coaching and stuff, but it's purposeful. You know, we do not prescribe a specific way that you are in every session, and so there's so much that isn't just dictated. So it can take a while to get into your own style of mentorship. And one of my dreams was, this is still a dream, but is that we will have a full Rolodex of mentors of different identities, so people can really look and see who they want to meet with. And maybe it's not just like, oh, I'm Black, I want a Black adoptee mentor, but it's like, I'm a musician and look at this person, they're a musician, I want them. Like, there's so many aspects of um, our personhood that I'm really hopeful we can have a huge roster someday of equipped mentors. I have found it to be kind of surprising that one mentee that I have a really deep relationship with I couldn't be more different from her. She is in her early 20s. I started mentoring her when she was 18, a white young woman who was in foster care most of her life and adopted at 18 by her band teacher, white folks. So, you know, I was adopted really young out of foster care and have the transracial. Anyways, there's you wouldn't just out the gate be like, we're going to be a great fit, but it's been remarkable. And that's what I really want to build. It's not just, you're a Chinese adoptee, you should be mentored by this Chinese adoptee. Like, that really actually makes me feel sad, because that's just one obvious identity. There's so much deeper pieces in there. And so, you know, so this whole very intentional, slow process is purposeful. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, I turned off my slide deck because I want to close us out. I think we've given so much information, but if there's more, Kosi, I see your hand. I certainly also want to say that, like, Amanda is a great resource for further questions if you have any, because they are our programming person. Um, and we are not, there's no tricks here, you know, like, we're not playing games, super transparent. So ask away. But Kosu, yeah.
Can I just say, sorry, right before Kosu, I just wanted to add to what you were just saying, Angela. Also, everything will be on our website, so you can go there right now. You can see the requirements, all the meetings that I mentioned, a rough estimate of dates and time, estimates for those things. That will be updated. There will be some changes to that, and then later this month, I'm hoping, don't quote me. Oh no, I'm being recorded. But later this month, I hope we will have the full application available. It will not be open until November 1st, but we want to get the questions out so folks can see them. Please apply early as you can. But so you'll be able to see the application questions in advance. Same with the follow-up interview questions as well. So yeah, trying to give you all as much information as possible so you can consider if applying makes sense for you.
Really, I just wanted to briefly say thank you. You know, I'm so touched by how you're modeling, holding the sort of the dichotomy of being open and invitational and warm, but also having really clear boundaries. You know, when Matthew asked, "Can you be both things?" There was just such a clear, spontaneous, "No, you can't." Actually, like there are some really clear parameters here. And there's something that really, like that creates such safety and trust. So just really, really a lot of appreciation. And the more time I spend with each of you, the more time I want to spend. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kosu. Thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting. It kind of on its face, mentorship seems so simple. And I think that's part of this application process. Prior to Amanda, I really was swayed with people who are like, oh my gosh, I'm on fire for adoptees. I love adoptees. I want to be a mentor. And I'm like, yes, thank you. Great. Let's do it. Misunderstanding the passion is not enough to mentor. So thankfully, Amanda has helped with a lot of those boundaries and structure and realizing that that actually is creates more safety. Thanks, Kosu.
I just can I, hi. Okay. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just again just piggyback off what she said because what's impressive to me is that I have like a BSW in social work and psychology and stuff, but it's like you don't have to have that debt of having an MSW necessarily or like to go and to get a PhD. It's great that you do, but I'm so impressed, this solid foundation of all this training available to people that you just know are just well equipped, stable, have the life experiences, professional, but yet they just don't want to pay Uncle Sam more money to go get that MSW, I mean, but just I'm very impressed with this program that you guys have. And I wish I had been introduced to this years ago. I'm in my, mid 50s now, but the timing has to be right where I think the individual has to go through their own healing journey. And I've done that for years. And so, but I'm so glad that I attended this and hopefully, one day or someday, that's what I'd like to see as I foresee myself. I'd love to be mentor. But I just love the fact that you have a bright smile and that from all over. I mean, because to me, that's, when I taught for MPS, my whole classroom theme was Milwaukee Public Schools was unity and diversity. And I see this in this organization. And it's just so impressive to me. And I think, that there's so much more that can be done. And there's such a need. And starting with getting the word, because I'm like, where has this been my whole life? Okay, I'm in my mid 50s now, just went back to Korea for the first time in 50 years, So, and I think that, so I just want to say thank you for taking the time because what a pleasure it's been. And again, I can't emphasize for all the different trainings that I've been through and this training and that training and this, and it's just that you just as professionals and just have come together as a community to say, you know what? You don't have to have a piece of paper. We're going to train you, walk you through, support you, and we're going to get you to where you need to be and make sure that you are, because oftentimes, as we know, I mean, you can go through a lifetime of paid counseling sessions, and I walk out of there half the time. Wait, did I just counsel them, or did they just listen to my life story for the 50th time? So the boundaries and everything, I'm really excited. I mean, the vision, I think it's fabulous. And thank you for coming and sharing and allowing me to join you all. So, but yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a place for all of us, and I think clinicians certainly have a huge role, and they treat different. They treat, I think some of the things that I'm proud of with this organization are when adoptees receive mentorship, and then they feel empowered to find a therapist because they now have more language to describe what it is they really want to work on with a trained clinician who is absolutely doing something different than we are. But it does seem to be a stepping stone, and many adoptees don't know that might need that. So that's
And
one.
how about teaching, like, I mean, have you guys thought about, I'm just thinking ahead, like teaching parenting classes, or like, oftentimes we think of adoption as, in my case, is a piece of, oh, you have the money? Okay, great. Open your checkbook. Okay. But there's so much more to that. So I didn't know if you guys had like thought about that at all, of like,
It's thought about a lot of things.
parenting and getting the families involved, because so much of our dysfunctionality, I speak for myself from adoption, is that our families aren't equipped besides writing a check. And so we grow through, and then I was adopted by white very, very, very white community, white family. So it's just, but that just came to my thought of just, I didn't know if you guys were thinking of that. So, but okay.
So much
That's all.
to think about, and
Yeah.
we're pretty, we're 100% focused on adoptees, and we aren't
Awesome.
going to be expanding into.
Love it.
No, I know there's a need, and that's not us. And it's exciting for us though to be able to share resources of others who are doing great work, helping to educate adoptive parents in different ways. But yeah, for us, this is it, and this is where we want to stay. Yeah. I think the fireside chat is a little nod to that, though. It's a space where others can come and hear, but it's certainly not our core service. Well, I think we should wrap up because this has gone longer than we expected, but I am so grateful for all the ways that each of you really leaned in and wanted to be here and learn about our org. Again, like Amanda said, so much info on our website. We tried to jam pack that with all the FAQs, but we are also here. So info@adopteementorship.org goes to all three of us. We see every email that comes through. Reach out if you'd like. And Amanda, Juliet, missing anything? Yeah. Okay. Have a great evening. Stay in touch. Thank you all. Bye.